You expect that when you enroll your child into a school that the teacher, the people at that school are suitably qualified, but also suitably vetted to ensure that there are of the best ilk of people to be in and around the presence of young people. Um, but apparently, only 19% of South Africans' teachers have been vetted against the National Register for Sex Offenders. 81% of the country's 405,000 teachers remain unchecked. And there have, in the last while, been various reports of the level of teachers who have been sanctioned for cases of abuse or harassment. In fact, the Education Labour Relations Council having been referred to 111 cases of either abuse or harassment by teachers in 2024-2025. In the Eastern Cape, 22 teachers were suspended in 2024 for serious misconduct. 5 cases were for sexual assaults. I speak now to Ella Mokgalane, who's the CEO of the South African Council of Educators. Good morning, Ella. Really appreciate your time. Maybe you can explain to our listeners first just what is required when someone decides, I want to be a teacher, before they are appointed either in a public or a private school. What happens after you get a qualification saying that you're suitably qualified to teach? What then happens next from a SACE level?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners, Lester. From the South African Council for Educators, we are a professional regulatory body for all the educators in the country from both public and private or independent schooling sector. Once you qualify from an institution of higher education, you are required as an educator to apply to SACE, because the SACE Act is very clear that no one can stand in front of learners if that person is not professionally registered with council. And therefore, you submit your application, and part of that is for us to check if you are beyond reproach in as far as your conduct is concerned. And therefore, we require everyone who submit application to apply for police clearance from the South African Police Services so that you can be checked against the criminal record database. That's the first thing. But secondly, we need to check against the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development National Register of Sexual Offenders. The third area that we need to check against is the Department of Social Development National Child Protection Register. However, that particular area, we haven't started 100% because the Children's Act, is now giving access to the employers. But we are negotiating with that particular department.
Yeah. But Ella, so for only 19% of teachers out of the 405,000 teachers in South Africa, only 19% have been vetted. Why the slow progress?
Can I make a distinction between vetting that is done by the South African Council for Educators, that is when we admit you into the profession, and the vetting that is done by the employers in terms of the 9 provincial education departments? And those figures that you're referring to would be from the provincial education departments. From SACE side, absolutely everyone who comes into the profession is vetted. But the legislations, your Children's Act and also your criminal law, sexual offences and related matters, is requiring employers, in addition to what SACE has already done, to also vet educators against the National Sexual Offences Register. So the figures you are talking about is the employers. Unfortunately, I can't speak on behalf of them because they have their own spokesperson who can be able to unpack the reasons why only 19%. But from our side, there's no way that you can get into the classroom if you are not registered. However, you would have few where employers, if I may use, for a lack of better word, being naughty to bring. We had about around 7,000 plus that for some reasons were employed by the employers without registration. And that is why you would have seen in the media some bit of a noise around SACE being strict and sending them SMSs and letters to say, you are not registered with Council, because we did a data match between our database and also the database PESAL from National Treasury, which is giving us the figures to say these ones are not registered. And we then said to the 9 provinces, there's no way that you can have those teachers in classes. We're giving you some time, and it was about 2 weeks. Within that period, all those people should be registered. If not, they must leave the classroom.
There have been reports, and this report comes from a credit bureau or credit industry business, saying that 3% of school staff, that includes teachers, have criminal records or awaiting trial. And yes, I'll accept, and granted, these may not be for any violence-related crimes, but having a cohort of teachers where there's more than 3% either having convictions or awaiting trial, is that a concern for you?
It is really a concern for us. That is why we make sure that there's no one who comes into the profession without being registered. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that when they are already in the profession, you can't have any misconduct that is happening. That is why when that is reported to us, there's a disciplinary process that we go through, and at the end of the day, there are sanctions that are meted out for those that are really violating the standards of the profession and all that. So that credit bureau report, we've seen it. Until such time that we know who those people are, we won't be able to deal with them. But I'm happy that from time to time, the public, the parents, the other teachers themselves, and the media in addition, are able to give us those that are miscreants, and we are able to deal with them accordingly.
Is there a difference between the accreditation process between teachers in a public school sector and those who are at independent schools? Are they equally monitored? Are they equally vetted?
From SACE point of view, yes. That is why I'm saying we regulate both the independent schooling sector and also the public schooling sector. And in addition, when Umalusi, the quality assurance body that accredits independent schools, so when they go to do the accreditation, we have a memorandum of understanding with them to say, if there are teachers that are not registered, or if there are teachers that are having violations of the Code of Professional Ethics or Professional Standards, they need to alert us. They do so. And in addition, they would not accredit that school if those people are not, from qualifications point of view and also conduct of point of view, are not in order. And therefore, that process is working very well. And we are able to assist where possible in terms of making sure that those educators are registered quickly, and also to make sure that if there are misconduct, we deal with them from a disciplinary point of view.
I'd just like your thoughts, Ella, on a WhatsApp from a listener saying that parents should have access to view a sexual offences register to individually and independently verify whether the child's teacher is on the list. I know it brings up issues around individual privacy, but I'd like your thoughts on that question, that comment by a listener that parents, in fact, should have access to view a register to see whether their child's teacher's name is on that list.
If you go on our website, SACE website, www.sace.org.za, you would see that on our website we've got a link. If you want to check if a teacher is not having any offenses or is not one of those pedophiles or that, you are able to put in the ID number if you have the ID number, and it will give you feedback to say this one is in order or this one is not. But in terms of checking the National Sexual Offenders Register, obviously there are processes from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development.
Dr. Ella Mokgalane, CEO of the South African Council of Educators.